I turn off my phone. You can't reach me, oh no. No need for those.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with New York-based jazz singer, songwriter, and arranger Svetlana of the Delancey Five out of New York City. They just released a new 2016 CD called Night at the Speakeasy featuring the great Wycliffe Gordon. She was born and raised in Moscow, Russia, and the albums of Ella Fitzgerald lured her into the jazz universe very early on. She would go on to get her M.A. from the Manhattan School of Music, learning from the likes of Gretchen Parlato, and continuing on to get her doctorate. She plays at all the finest joints in New York and loves giving fans that 20s to 40s jazz feeling with her group, the Delancey Five. She has a lot of plans and loves doing that thing she does, so please dig this interview, my friends.
So let me go ahead and dive right in here, and let me get an idea of activity. Give me a snapshot of things that are going on lately with you.
Being a very busy New York musician, playing a ton. We recorded our debut record. It came out in January on Origin Records, so have been kind of spreading the word about that. It features a great collaborator and a mentor, Wycliffe Gordon, on some trombone and vocals with me and arranging as well. And it's a combination of original tunes and some favorite swing standards and also some arrangements of modern standards, so songs by Beatles or Beach Boys that we love. So have been kind of busy spreading the word by the virtue of, collecting some press, and people have liked it, and also releasing videos on some of the songs that they're like little movies representing the ideas of the songs, especially the original songs that I wrote. And again, just kind of working hard on here, working on shows here in New York. We have a cool show coming up in June with Blue Note Festival, where we're bringing Wycliffe to town to do a show with us. That's going to be a combination of the record and some tunes from the Verve recordings by Ella and Louis, and playing almost 2-3 times a week, every week. Yesterday played 2 4.5-hour gigs. So
Right on. So the album that we're speaking of is Night at the Speakeasy. Mm-hmm. And what I want to know is, what did you want to capture with this album to kind of pull the listener into? How do you want them to feel about this album?
Right. It's a great question. In a nutshell, I would say that what we say in our EPK, this is music that makes you smile. I know this is a very wide range of music, from Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star to, complex oratorios by Bach. We're a swing band. We've been playing together as a band for 4 years, actually, as of 2 weeks from now. We have this vibe for the band that is swing, lighthearted. It's something that I wanted to create an album that is good for your heart, something that does make you smile, something that's good for your feet, something you can dance to, and also something that's good for your ears. In other words, music of a caliber that can be on the radio, that people can buy on a CD, and even if you're not a dancer, to listen to. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what this is about.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Moscow, Russia, actually.
Okay.
I came here kind of by myself. I was always a musician, but I didn't really take that full-time, as opposed to kind of more practical occupations, for a long while. But especially with this band is what kind of what has been my pursuit for the last several years, and what really kind of took the music and my skills as musicians, as band leader, as a songwriter to the next level.
So growing up in Moscow, how did you get this bug to love music, and more specifically jazz?
Growing up in Russia, it's a very sort of culturally intense environment. I studied music as a kid, and I've always sang in choirs since I was probably 5 or 6 years old, of different sizes from 15 to 200. I was surrounded by music. It was like a normal part of a lot of kids' upbringing. But then jazz is very different from Russian music in sort of very specific ways, such as syncopation, Russian music is very evenly metered, 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Though traditional Russian music is 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And then also the chromaticisms that are really not present as much, if at all. In Russian music, there's a lot of thirds and sort of more pleasing, seemingly, to the ear harmonies. So when we just had records at home by Ella Fitzgerald, and I just started listening to them. Those records, the Ella Lewis, Porgy and Bess, and some of the Verve records, or Ella Sings Duke Ellington, and it really intrigued my ear. And of course, her voice is very interesting. It's really a perfect voice. She sounds, now that I have been a student of vocals for a long time, I can appreciate it more, but I always appreciated it on an intuitive level. It's completely evenly toned on the bottom of her range, and it's as thick in the middle and as thick and even on top. And so just the beauty of her voice drew me in. And I'm still, when I'm listening to any vocalist today, my first thing that I'm drawn to is the tone. And that spectacular tone really drew me in. And I listened to those records, a lot until I wore them out. And I kind of got into maybe a little bit of that quality into my voice, and I just loved singing those songs, half understanding what they mean. But yeah, that's kind of probably a story of any jazz artist. They would tell you that they were either making this music or listening to this music growing up, right?
Absolutely. Let me ask you this about being in a formal educational environment. You got your MA from the Manhattan School of Music. You learned from Gretchen Parlato and others. What did you get from a formal educational environment that helped you as a singer?
Thank you so much for asking that, because most of my people thought that I'm nuts when I decided to do this. I already had a graduate degree in a different subject, and I also was a working musician, and a lot of people were kind of, my colleagues, my beloved colleagues, musicians, were questioning, you're already playing, you're already doing a lot of great shows, why do you need a degree? I just felt like I plateaued in all kinds of ways, mostly as a musician. I have too much pride to just be a chick singer. I was leading bands always, or a lot of times. I was a side person, like invited vocalist from time to time, where my job was to learn the song and to just perform it the best I could. But a lot of times I led the band, and I felt like I plateaued. I was doing the same songs in the same way, and I was looking for something to open up both my imagination and my ability to write. I am most excited about writing songs, new songs. And also in terms of arranging, arranging means exactly what it sounds like. It's like little pieces of the puzzles. You take a song, and then you decide how, what it's going to be, and you arrange these pieces in this kind of way. I have these instruments, they're going to play in harmony here, they're going to, solo here, then this is going to come in, then this is going to come in. And I had some intuitive idea about those things just from listening to the music. I'm a little bit of an impatient person. I don't have time or patience to learn it over a decade. So I kind of really wanted to go into one place and get this very intense kind of immersive education into all of those things. And it certainly did that. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And, I have a doctorate degree from Columbia University in, sociology and psychology. So that tells you something. It was phenomenal. And vocal education, actual technique, was a small part of it. I am still continuing to take lessons with Kate McGarry, who is a phenomenal vocalist and incredible teacher, the best I've ever encountered. Theo Bleckmann, and, that journey is a longer one. I think I'm only now noticing in the ways in which I'm singing differently. It's an instrument. It takes a long time to change and transform. But those things, as far as arranging and composing, when you're asked every day of the week to write 2 or 3 songs or compositions, composing becomes less of a big deal. It's not as precious. Someone asked Stevie Wonder, how do you come up with a genius album once a year? And he said, 12 songs that are all brilliant. And he said, I write one song every day. And, by the end of the year, he has a phenomenal album. And that's kind of what the school was. The preciousness of writing a song disappeared, and I became more free to explore. And, some things were horrible, and other things became real songs,
Yeah, absolutely. So the bottom line is practice. It's all about whether or not you feel it that day. It's about putting it out there.
It's not just practice. For me, it was just learning the vocabulary, frankly, and the language. You have to know how you arrange a song. In school, I arranged for big bands, and I arranged for small ensembles, and that's what I do now, the small ensemble arrangement for my band, learning the tradition and how it's been done and learning what different words mean. Sometimes I ask other people to arrange things for me, and I can articulate very clearly what I want, what I like, what I don't like, and it makes for productive collaboration with other, great arrangers here in the city as well. So it's practice, but it's also learning vocabulary and just opening up your mind. Graduate school is for trying things on a no-fail basis, frankly, that you otherwise wouldn't try. I have taken, very difficult rhythmic courses and modern jazz arranging and Brazilian music and things that I have not necessarily tried in depth in other places. And the faculty at the Manhattan School of Music is phenomenal. There are people who are best in the world in what they do. So to get exposure to these people and learn from them was amazing.
Absolutely. So the real classroom of the world is obviously performing live, and you've gone on to New York to play at venues like the Catano Jazz Inc. Bar, Barb's 92nd Street Y. What is your feeling getting on stage? Do you get nervous? Do you get butterflies? Or has it always been a natural thing to get on stage and to perform?
Great question again. It has not been a natural thing. I think the natural thing is to be afraid, especially when it's something that's important to you. If it was not important, you wouldn't get nervous. I remember very well when I started performing, in a solo kind of environment in middle school and high school, I got jitters that were crazy. Like I had my knees really shaking. I couldn't stop it. Yeah. I think at this point, I don't feel that paralyzing fear. I mean, I'm performing several times a week. I'm not afraid. I think the things that are difficult and make it more stressful situation are not related to music as much. I got the music down. It's the other things, and this is part of being independent musician in the city. You're your own booker. You are your own manager. You are the person who talks to the sound guy, and, sometimes sound guys are phenomenal, and you just go on and everything is perfect, and sometimes you have to explain to them that you need to hear yourself or you'll lose your voice. And they tell you, baby, I got you, and they don't got you at all, because you come out of the show and you didn't hear what you were singing because the monitors were not on. And those parts create the stress. And I think it's, hopefully as you proceed with your career and you play better venues, just last year we played at B.B. King's, at Blue Note, and at many other phenomenal venues, or even small venue like Rockwood Music Hall, where a real attention is paid to the sound. This new club in the city, Club Bonafide, it's really state-of-art sound. The further you proceed, those stresses kind of fall out because you get to work with better teams supporting your shows, and that's kind of part of growth. But I don't really have those paralyzing jitters, that are related to performance as much. It seems I feel more at home.
So let me ask you this. You got your band, the Delancey Five. The real impetus behind what you do is you pay homage to that hard swinging 20s to 40s jazz vibe. What is it about that era that has captivated you that you want to recreate, mold into your own way? Again,
to me, it's this enchantment of my early childhood with songstresses like Ella or Sarah Vaughan, Anita O'Day that came in, as I was kind of developing my musical taste. It's frankly, enchantment with beauty. I think a lot of us become artists of any kind because we love beauty. We were playing, like I said, 8.5 hours yesterday with my band, 2 different shows, one up at Rockefeller Center at the Rainbow Room and another one for one of the oldest swing dance societies here in New York, one of a few, New York Swing Dance Society. And, I turned back to my band to give cues, and people sit there with closed eyes smiling. We're drawn to music by beauty, and that 20s, 30s, 40s music has this innocence and beauty that is perhaps a little less covered up, by intellect and smartness that modern jazz represents. I'm, not at all saying that more modern jazz has, less beauty. I can, name many gorgeous performers and composers of the modern jazz. But I feel like that one, that has this kind of uncovered, it's kind of a childhood of jazz, that's beauty and naivete, and it's out there for you to consume. The songs, the songs are right there. I am enchanted by songs. I love songs. I love singing songs. I love writing songs. I love hearing they were the original songs of the 20s. They're more standards and not originals today, but they were a way to express, different feelings and different stories that people had. So I'm just very drawn to it. I love playing for dancers. This is how this, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't mention it. This is how this band came together. When we started at this little bar on the Lower East Side, the back room, that is one of the original remaining speakeasies in New York City. The show that I'm proud to say we still play. Like I said, in 2 weeks we're going to have our 4th anniversary of playing there. There's even graffiti outside by an anonymous graffiti artist that resembles me. It is not me. I have researched it. It's a Lara Del Rey, but it does look like me, and it appeared there on the 2nd anniversary of us playing in this venue. So I think it's one of those only New York miracles type of thing. When we started playing, our first listeners and our first supporters were dancers, and the reason I love playing for dancers is because I feel that this is jazz at its very core, not only because of the history, because the music emerged as social music. It emerged as dance music in those bars and New Orleans parades and bars and speakeasies of the Prohibition era, but also because they are musicians making music with me in the moment. And that's the improvisation is one of the core features that makes jazz jazz. It's the syncopation and the chromaticisms and the improvisation. So the people, they're listening to this music that we're making, not just with their ears and nods, but with their whole bodies, and they're making music with us. And that's exhilarating. Yesterday at this New York Swing Dance Society show, there were the old-timers. There were the people who emerged, as a group in the 80s and 90s and, had this huge dances in Irving Plaza, and they are coming alive with this music, and to make this music while watching them dance and make music with us, it's a phenomenal experience. So this music that is on this record and this band is playing is a very danceable music. So we do a lot of those kind of things as well.
Well, and you're obviously diversified too. You play big bands, pop, gypsy swing, klezmer, 100-person gospel choir, small jazz ensembles. How does all of that feed into the entirety of your musical joy?
Man, it's the songs. It's the songs that I love. I mean, that's how I named my recital at the Manhattan School of Music. I named it Songs I Love, and I presented the music of the 20s and 30s and the arrangements and my original songs from the record that kind of have that vibe, the swing vibe, and then several songs that I wrote or I arranged that had more modern jazz vibe, and also I have electronic sort of pop, a little avant-garde-ish project that I also presented. Again, I know it's going to sound corny, but I don't care. It's the beauty and it's the songs. It's expressing, good music is good music. It's expressing, or at least that's, what I aspire to, I don't always get there every day, but it's the telling the stories through this art form that's very abstract. You create it in the moment, and it's there to evoke feelings in people and to transform them and to transform yourself, and then it disappears the next moment. How much more abstract can you get? But all of it the beauty connects it, and songs is expression of this beauty and expression of this life stories that we have.
Right on. Let me ask you this. You've been well educated. You've had a lot of great teachers over the years. Is there anybody's advice, not your favorite teacher, but is there any advice that you got from a teacher that reverberates in your head on a regular basis that you always remember?
I'd have to think about that one, but so I'm going to give you maybe not the best advice, but some of the things that come to mind. I remember the lesson that I had with Theo Bleckmann at the Manhattan School of Music, and he was telling us a little bit more about his journey and him starting out on things. And again, man, it kind of comes back a little bit to what I just talked about, how he was once in the studio recording an album and he had some of his electronic toys with him, and he started making the sounds, and it just captivated him. This beauty of particular sound and particular making of music just spoke to him, and he said, when I started, it may not have been something that resonated with a lot of people, but you have to kind of just be led by your heart and keep working in it at all times. Just try to find this thing that really, really moves you. And maybe it's not one thing, right? But try to find something that really moves you, and that's who you are, and stick with it. It's a tough way of thinking in a way, because it can leave you in a lonely place, It's almost what he's saying is serve the music. Don't use the music to serve you, right?
Yeah.
And that means that you can just, for example, with the swing project, in a way, I must admit, it's sort of been an easier ride in this way. Like, I've always loved this music. I've always was drawn to this music. I sang it as a kid when I was 5, and I with obviously terrible interpretation of the lyrics. And then, I still love singing those songs. I was singing it yesterday on the hour 7.5, my voice super warmed up, hitting my 4-octave range, and just loving every note of it. And it happens to be that right now there's this revival of swing, and we've been kind of carried a little bit by this wave of hot jazz and swing. But then I also love this other project of mine, which is electronic, a regional music project, and kind of a blend of jazz and, like I said, and pop and a little bit of a rock. And it's my art. I sort of don't care if it gets picked up or not, or I work on my way of production. This music, it's a live project. I record songs with it, and, I'm sticking with it. It's also part of me. And I think in the daily grind of being in New York, being musicians, playing gigs, needing to, pay for your life with gigs, you go where the money is, or you go where the opportunity is. But, his advice was, what's going to bring you're the artist. That's why you got into this. And what's going to bring you the most joy is finding those places that speak to your heart and really seeking with them. Sounds a little corny, but that's one thing that came to mind when you asked. Yeah.
No, that's actually that nails it. Let me ask you this: we've kind of you're dealing with a realm of jazz that's nostalgic, the 20s to 40s, and you mentioned a lot of artists that swayed you, like Ella. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and witness any jazz artist perform, who would you want to see live?
Ella.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think she was this intoxicating artist. I arrived to New York in 95, and she passed on in 96. And the realization that, I mean, she was not really performing at that time, though she performed late into her life from the wheelchair, you know.
Yeah.
That, like, I just miss her, broke my heart. I also would have liked, I think, as I grew as a person, you know, and acquired more life experiences, and as I have accumulated more musical maturity, there were other artists that I have acquired taste for that as a kid or as a, you know, young adult, I didn't really care for as much. It's kind of like blue cheese. You appreciate the complexity of what the artist brings to the table. Not that Ella didn't have that. Anita O'Day, I read her biography, which also allowed me to kind of get into the inside of her head a bit on how complex of a person she was and the addiction and, you know, her life as an artist. And she was saying, I don't really have the chops that Ella has or Sarah has, but she was an incredible musician. I learned that she was learning drums, that she was a drummer. She learned drums from her colleagues in the band, and her singing is like drumming, her sense of time and her rhythms. And I think to see, there's this documentary about her performing in Newport Festival, which kind of brought her fame to much wider audiences. That documentary, I think it's called On a Summer Day or something like this. She was just an intoxicating artist, and to see how she was doing 20 courses of T for two with this Olympic speed, I'm sure it would have been phenomenal. Nina Simone, again, learning more about her life and really hearing her and her life and her pain is something that I would have liked to witness. Billie Holiday, in a similar way. I may be a bit of an anarchist here for saying that, but I hate so much with my whole heart all these movies and plays where modern artists impersonate this incredible musicians. I don't know, something in me makes me feel that it's disrespectful and it cannot measure up. I love them too much.
Yeah.
It's like someone coming and saying, I'm going to play a role of your husband. I would have wanted to see this woman live, and I never, ever, ever, ever want to see anyone depicting it. And I never, ever, ever want to see someone singing like them. You know, of course, I think we're all influenced, and I hear this one musician, and I can hear overtones of this artist and that artist, but I never, ever, ever want to hear anybody sounding like Billie Holiday, like Nina. It's freaky, it's offensive, it's stupid, you know?
Yeah.
I would have loved to see this ladies live and, you know, learn from them and hear their souls, you know, in a live performance.
So let me ask you this. What's one of the nicest things a fan has ever said to you?
Things like that it changed their day, you know?
Yeah.
That it made them smile. I think as an artist, if you are able to transform your own life and life of others, that's kind of, and I don't mean transform in a way, I mean, we could all be so lucky to transform it in a bigger way, but if we can invoke emotions that otherwise are not experienced by either us or our audiences, I mean, that's kind of the ultimate prize. And so when I heard people say that to me, I think that's the most precious one. I mean, people say, you know, you have this voice, you have that voice, you know, we love the show, you know, we had so much fun. I think having so much fun is kind of approaching that from another end too. You're able to invoke a transformation. Otherwise is not experienced. That's what draws personally us as artists. That's what makes music this drug, you know, that you go after. This guy's on my bandstand yesterday who was sitting there with their closed eyes. That's the emotions they were experiencing with music. And if you can invoke that in your audience, I think that's phenomenal.
So let me ask you this. It's a general question. Why do you love jazz?
That it's alive. You know, you go in, you know the song. It's usually a pretty song. It has some complexity to it. It has some maybe interesting harmony changes, or so to begin with, it's good material, it's good music, and then it's unpredictable. A lot of times I would sing one chorus close to the melody, and then I would go in and try to improvise, either by changing the melody or adding a little bit to the lyrics. And then my band, in the best of possible worlds, you know, is there, and that's how I choose the musicians I play with. People who want to be there with me on this journey of the little, 4 or 5 minute song. It's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. It's exhilarating, It's this energy of a little bit walking on a tightrope, And I think audience can feel it as well. At the back room, for example, this weekly show that I've mentioned, we're not always playing, or most time, we're not playing to sophisticated jazz audiences, not the guys who go to jazz festivals or buy jazz records. They're there to have a good time after a work day. They're on a date. They're maybe there to dance. And when, in the best possible scenario, when this aliveness happens, the room explodes. People can really feel it. Again, it's you're taking them with you on a journey. It's like, oh my God, that just happened. I didn't expect that. It's not about tricks and surprising them, but it's about making this music alive. The surprise, you never know what's going to happen, and that's the improvisation part, which is jazz, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this. Let's say we talk in 10 years, and I ask you what's been going on. What do you want to see happen in the next 10 years?
Honestly, I have written great songs. I have performed nonstop, made more music with great musicians all over the world, because I love travel. I adore travel. Travel is just something that feeds your soul in such incredible ways. So I would love for the music to take me, all over the world, and I've traveled a bunch, and to do that with music would be just so fun. But to be honest with you, the same thing that I'm doing now, but more and better. I'm more in control of my vocal instrument. I have my voice, People lose their instruments, people damage the instruments, but I have my instrument. It's stronger. I can express myself better. But so it's kind of doing what I'm doing now, but more and better. And writing more, writing better material, putting out stuff that I'm proud of,
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. This is my final question. Everyone has a version of who you are. Your family does, your friends do, those that you sing to in the crowd do. But who do you think you are?
Oh, God. I'm a human, go about my life expressing myself through art, and expressing myself through love for other people. Expressing myself through love for my children and for my family. Just, a human trying to lead an honest and productive and creative life.
Perfect. That's a perfect way to wrap everything up. Thank you for spending a little time with me today and giving me your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate your attention and consideration.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Svetlana for her time, her music, and that journey of hers. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Or you can always visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.